In the rolling hills of a quiet countryside, where the roads curled like ribbons through fields of wheat and wildflowers, stood an old, weathered farmhouse. Its white paint had long since faded to gray, and its porch sagged gently as if weary from the years. But there, on that very porch, sat a dog, a shepherd mix with a thick brown coat and eyes that held 1,000 sunsets. His name was Rusty, and he was waiting. Rusty wasn't waiting for food or play or even company. He was waiting for Tom. Tom had been everything to Rusty. A quiet, kind man with callous hands and a soft voice, Tom had raised Rusty from a pup. They'd shared every season together, chasing butterflies through spring meadows, fishing by the creek in summer, watching the leaves fall in autumn, and warming by the fireplace through bitter winters. They were more than owner and pet, they were soulmates, stitched together by years of love. Then one chilly morning, everything changed. Tom had packed a small bag and stood on the porch with watery eyes. He crouched to Rusty's level, ruffling his fur with trembling fingers. "Be a good boy," he said gently, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'll be back before you know it." Rusty tilted his head, sensing something strange. Tom kissed the top of his head, stood up, and walked slowly to his old blue pickup truck. Rusty watched him drive away, his tail wagging faintly, waiting for him to return that evening. But he didn't. Not that night, not the next, not ever. Days passed, then weeks. Neighbors started talking. Some thought Tom had left town to escape debt. Others whispered of illness. Some said he'd gone to the hospital and never made it back. But no one knew for sure. Rusty, however, didn't care for rumors. He stayed. He guarded the porch night and day, eyes fixed on the road. He refused food at first, waiting faithfully for Tom to bring him breakfast like he always did. Hunger eventually wore him down, and kind strangers started leaving scraps by the gate. He ate only what he needed to survive, never leaving the property for long. Through spring rains, summer heat, and winter snow, Rusty endured. His fur thickened, his body toughened, his eyes grew older, but never dull. Coyotes and foxes that crept too close to the barn were chased off with sharp barks. No one entered the house. It was his duty to keep it safe, just as Tom had asked. Seasons cycled like clockwork. The once white fence turned to silver gray. The garden overgrew with weeds. The wind carried the creaks of the porch across the hills like an old song. And still, Rusty remained. Local folks began to notice. A delivery man snapped a photo and posted it online. Soon, strangers came just to see the ghost guardian, as people had started calling him. Some tried to coax him away with treats, but he always returned to the same spot right in front of the door, as if expecting it to open at any second. A young girl named Emily became one of the few Rusty allowed near. Every day after school, she would sit by the gate and talk to him, feeding him bits of her sandwich or apple slices. "Why do you wait here all alone?" she asked once, her small hand brushing through his fur. Rusty didn't respond with words. Of course, he simply rested his head against the fence, gazing toward the horizon where the road disappeared into trees. The place where Tom had vanished. Emily's parents tried to bring him home during a snowstorm. Rusty followed their car briefly, but turned around halfway and returned to the house. That night, he dug a hole under the porch to stay warm. And once the snow melted, he was back on the steps, sitting like a soldier at his post. Years turned to nearly a decade. Rusty's muzzle turned gray, his legs stiffened, his movements slowed, but his spirit never faded. And then, One rainy afternoon, everything changed. A silver car pulled up to the gate. The rain was gentle, like a whisper. The door opened, and out stepped a young man, tall, thin, with tired eyes and an old photograph in his hand. He stood still for a moment, staring at the house. Then he looked at Rusty. Rusty stood slowly. His joints ached, but something in the air shifted. There was a scent, a feeling, a familiarity he couldn't quite name. The man walked toward the porch, water dripping from his coat. He knelt down and held out the photo. It was old and faded, but Rusty saw it clearly, a picture of a small boy hugging a younger version of himself. The man's voice cracked. "I'm Daniel, Tom's son. I didn't know. I didn't even know he had a dog until I found this photo in his old things." Rusty inched forward, sniffing. The man smelled like Tom, not exactly, but enough. The same cologne, maybe. The same sorrow. Daniel looked down, tears in his eyes. "They never told me he died. I found the house in his will. I didn't know he was gone until I found the letter." Rusty whimpered. He leaned forward and gently pressed his head into Daniel's chest. The young man wrapped his arms around him and whispered, "You waited all this time?" Rusty didn't need to answer. His body spoke for him, the years of patience, the aching bones, the weather-worn paws, all for love. In the weeks that followed, Daniel moved into the house. He restored it bit by bit, painting the porch, fixing the roof, and planting sunflowers in the yard just like his father used to. Rusty followed him everywhere. Though he moved slower now, he never let Daniel out of his sight. He slept beside his bed, just like he had with Tom, and lay beside him on the porch when they watched the sunset. The townspeople smiled when they passed by. "Looks like the ghost found peace," someone said. But Rusty wasn't a ghost. He was still very much alive, and for the first time in years, so was the house. Then one bright morning, with the sky painted in soft pink and gold, Rusty didn't wake up. Daniel found him lying under the old oak tree, his favorite spot, his chest still, his eyes closed, a gentle expression on his face, one of contentment, of rest, of reunion. Daniel buried him by the fence, where Rusty had waited the longest. The entire town came to say goodbye. Emily, now older, placed a bouquet of wildflowers on the grave. A small wooden sign was hammered into the earth. It read, "Here lies Rusty, the dog who never gave up." Though the porch was quiet again, the house no longer felt empty. It echoed with love, old and new, distant and returned. Rusty's spirit lived on in every corner, every creak of the wood, every whispering breeze, and Daniel, sitting with a cup of coffee each morning on the steps, would sometimes glance toward the road, smile softly, and whisper, "He kept the light on for me." Moral message: loyalty in its truest form never fades. It holds on, endures, and waits with love, even in silence.